Okay, maybe I should start with what goes wrong usually. Usually strategy is done in a boardroom, separate from the execution, separate from the people who are expected to implement the strategy. So it's kind of divorced from the action.
Welcome to another $4 million strategies. I'm very excited today to have our guest, Dr. Thomas Zweifel. He is the author of Strategy in Action. Today, he's going to tell us the best practices for strategic planning. All right, Thomas, tell us what you would recommend for best practices when doing strategic planning.
Okay, maybe I should start with what goes wrong usually. Usually strategy is done in a boardroom, separate from the execution, separate from the people who are expected to implement the strategy. So it's kind of divorced from the action. And so the first thing that I would recommend is to bring together the different stakeholders. And stakeholders could be even people that are clients, or it could be people that are all over the company in different functions, different geographical units, different levels of the hierarchy. And by the way, when I did this with a world bank, a global bank, Swiss bank, they resisted that. They didn't want to put people into the room. They said, the ones that are outside the room are probably wrong anyway, so we don't want to include them. But to include the right stakeholders is absolutely essential, because think of it for a second. If you are expected to implement something that you didn't create, you didn't have an experience of actually building it together, you have no interest. You just go like, good luck. Or even worse, you say people above us, 2 levels above us created this. We don't care whether it's going to succeed or not. So you actually have to build stakeholders. So that's, I think, number one. I would have between 20 and 30 people in the room and actually go over 3 days of really getting your hands around what do you have in terms of the current situation, what's the current culture, what's the mindset, what are the numbers, really create a shared understanding. And then you align on a strategic intent, and you basically stand in the future, maybe 3 years out, 5 years out, and you say, what would success look like, and to build a kind of a picture of the future, and then align everybody on I would say 15-word strategic intent that will serve as a kind of a magnet for action that gets you out of bed in the morning, but also that can act as a strategic filter that allows you to filter out activities that may have made sense in the past, but now are obsolete or bankrupt or just not matching the future that you want to build. And then I think the other best practice, I'm not going to give you all the 7 steps. People can look at that in the book. But the other big step is so-called catalytic projects. And that's why it's called strategy in action. You basically jumpstart the strategy. Once you have aligned on it, you say, okay, in the next 100 days, how could we create some outcome, some kind of a breakthrough accomplishment that is matching the future that we ultimately want, but on a very small scale, right? So kind of in a microcosm. And that allows you to experiment in the action. So instead of thinking about it or discussing it in a boardroom setting, you actually take the actions and let the action be the laboratory that allows you to evaluate, are we on the right path? Is this good or bad? So as an example, at a satellite company, international airline and the space company, we did this, and we reduced the overtime from 100% to 10%.
Thomas, thank you so much for being a part of our $4 million strategies.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.